Hi guys, my name is Lex. I'm an ex-Mormon and I've had a really stressful week, so I'm gonna complain a little bit. I just wanna let a few things off of my chest and I think it'll make me feel better. Here's some things that people have said to me that just absolutely rub me the wrong way. Let's start off with this one because it's one of the ones that drives me the most crazy when Mormons say, you chose all of that. After I tell a story about being raised in the Mormon church and the things that I went through, well, that was all your choice. Was it though? Was it my choice to be born into a Mormon family? I think any reasonable person would say, obviously, that wasn't my choice. And further than that, it wasn't my choice to go to church. I had absolutely no choice. One of my earliest memories is being like 3 or 4 years old and hiding in the bathtub because I didn't want to go to church, and obviously my parents forced me to go. And even as I got older, as like a preteen and a teenager, it wasn't a choice. I had to go to church. There would be consequences if I didn't go. And not even just going to church, the actual church service. I also was required to go to seminary. I was required to go to Mutual, which is the thing where the young men and the young women get together to do church activities once a week. I was required to watch General Conference twice a year. Like, there was no getting out of these things. It wasn't a choice. And I know that some Mormon families are more strict than others. I wouldn't even call my family all that strict, but there was absolutely no choice in the matter for me. And another thing, this isn't even something that Mormons do. It's a thing that non-Mormons do and people who have never been part of a high demand religion, when they're like, well, how did you not know you were in a cult? It's so obvious. Now, to you, from the outside looking in, of course it's obvious. And it's not like I hate when people ask this question, because sometimes people mean it sincerely, like they don't understand, they haven't like studied cults. But when people are really rude and bratty about it, like obviously you must be stupid. Like, give me a break. You try being raised in a cult and being able to tell that it's a cult from day one. I did figure it out eventually. If you guys have been around my channel for a while, you probably know this, but one of the things that I hate the most is when I talk about a Mormon rule, something that is like generally accepted, that prophets have said, that, you know, is enforced by parents within the Mormon religion, that is a part of lessons and talks and stuff. And I talk about that, and then a Mormon's like, no, that's not true. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing. How is it my problem if you are not paying attention when you go to church? How is it my problem if you're not watching General Conference? If you're not following the rules, it doesn't make it not a rule anymore. And that's another thing. When people talk about how Utah Mormons are just crazy and all other Mormons are like normal, on some level, I get what you're talking about. I get that the church is different in Utah versus in other places. I mean, that's not always the case. Like, I've heard that it depends, but like, yes, the church culturally is going to be different in different parts of the world. That just makes sense. Let's say you're a member of the church that lives in Sweden. I'm sure that in Sweden, being a church member is very different than it is in the United States. And I'm sure that being a Mormon in the United States as a whole is different than being a Mormon in Utah. The thing that makes Utah Mormons seem so weird and strange is that they follow the religion more closely than they do in other places. So let's say you live in, like, I don't know, Los Angeles or something, and you're a Mormon and you wear immodest clothing and you wear bikinis to the beach, you say swear words, you drink coffee. Like, that's super cool. Love that for you. Like, all of that stuff is not following Mormonism the way Mormonism is lined out to be according to the doctrine, the gospel, the prophets and apostles. The weird way that Mormons behave in Utah, where they're like really strict and they do all these specific things, that is Mormonism. Does that make sense? Am I making sense to you guys? I just get irritated because it's like, I understand that somebody is going to have a different experience being a Mormon than I did. Like, there are many ways to be Mormon, and the longer I'm out of the church and the more Mormons and ex-Mormons I meet, the more I realize that is so true. There is a million different ways to be a Mormon. Not all Mormons follow all the Mormon rules. Mormonism is culturally different in different parts of the world. But when you take it back to like, what actually is Mormonism? What rules should Mormons follow? What are the things that keep you from going to the temple? What are the things that could get you called into the bishop's office? Like, what, all of these things, when you like study Mormonism and what Mormonism wants, like if you were to be the perfect Mormon, would you be somebody that wears bikinis to the beach and drinks coffee and doesn't pay their tithing? No, because that's not following Mormonism the way that the prophets and apostles, who are the leaders of the church, have laid it out to be. So yeah, Utah Mormons come across like weirder and more cult-like than in other places, but that's because that is where the culture of the church and where the doctrine and stuff is more prevalent, where people are following all of those rules. I will accept no criticism of this idea. I'm just kidding. You can criticize, but like, do you get what I'm saying? Another thing that irritates me is when people don't understand the social and cultural pressure that comes along with things like going on a mission or getting married in the temple. There are so many people, both in and out of the church, that act like those things are just completely optional. And they don't either take into account or they don't know just how much pressure there is from your friends and family, from your ward, from your bishop, from all of the people in your life to do those things, to go through with those things, and how much of a social pariah you tend to be if you don't do those things. At least half of the ex-Mormon men I have talked to say that they mostly went on their mission because they didn't feel like they had a choice not to. And you can let me know in the comments how you feel about that, but I know from talking to family members, from talking to friends, from talking to my husband, a lot of times the mission can be a miserable experience. It's really difficult. It's not a walk in the park, and these boys feel like they don't have a choice. I can speak from experience that going through the temple to get married did not feel optional to me. I cannot even explain to you the disappointment that my parents would have had in me had I not gotten married in the temple. Technically, I had a choice. I could have chosen not to, but the pressure behind that was such an insanely intense decision that it doesn't feel optional in that moment. You know what else is kind of irritating is when I know more about Mormonism than Mormons do. And I get, on some level, I've spent a lot more time learning about Mormonism than a lot of Mormons have, because like you don't do deep dives into Mormon history and look at it from many different sources when you're a Mormon. Like you're only looking at it from church approved sources. So I get it, but like also this is your whole entire life. You should probably look into this more. And that's me criticizing myself too, because that was the way I was for a really long time. Anyway, that's my rant. I actually do feel better getting a few things off of my chest. So thank you for listening. If you're also an ex-Mormon, are there other things that people say that just grind your gears? Let me know in the comments. Huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all so much. And extra special thank you to Doug Davis for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. Doug, you are the GOAT. If you guys would like to support my channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.